Steph, welcome to the Big Lad podcast. It has been a long time coming. How are we?
Has indeed. All good this end. How are things with you?
Not too bad, thank you very much.
Good.
Would you like to give... It definitely is. Would you like to give yourself like a little introduction on what you do and, well, specifically what you do for work, because that is one of the things that we're going to be speaking about today.
It is indeed. So I work for the ambulance service, have done for about a year and a half, full-time for just over a year. I was a building surveyor for 2.5 years. After doing a master's in building surveying, and decided to have a little bit of a change of career.
What was the reason for the change?
I think more for my happiness, which obviously is partly why we're doing this, and my sort of mental health, and finding something that I genuinely love to do. And life is so short, and I think we had conversations about that when I was leaving as well, and wanting to not dread every Monday morning, because there's a lot of Monday mornings to dread at the end of the day. So when I found something that I absolutely love, I couldn't not do it.
So what specifically in the ambulance service are you doing?
So I am frontline, 999 calls, 5 days a week, 12-hour shifts. Yeah.
That sounds intense.
It is, but I love it, and I wouldn't change it for the world.
So, first of all, you were doing building surveying.
Mm-hmm.
How did you get into that in the first place?
So I did my undergrad uni degree in business and finance, and worked within a finance department of a building surveying company. And then the surveyors were never in the office. They were always out and about. So I was like, that's what I want to do. So came back home from Sheffield to Liverpool, did my master's in commercial building surveying, and got a job. And I enjoyed it. Don't get me wrong. I did enjoy it. Great people, everything like that. But I was in the office a lot more than I thought I'd be.
Right.
COVID hit. Good old COVID. Worked from home a bit. Still went into the office. We were quite lucky and managed to do that. But then I was speaking to one of my friends who's a paramedic, and they said, why don't you just do a bit of weekend work with these guys, do the odd event so you can help people, all of that malarkey, and it might just give you a little bit of satisfaction out of life. And it did the opposite. It egged it on more.
What sort of events were you doing then? Was it like festivals and stuff like that?
Chester races, the odd festival.
Dealing with drunk people.
Yeah, testing me. But no, I absolutely loved it, and I thought, you know what, this is what I want to do. Be able to help people, be there for people when it is one of the worst days of their life, and potentially make a tiny bit of difference to them. And that job satisfaction outweighed pretty much everything else, the money or whatever, because obviously as a building surveyor you're on a nice little, paycheck, but to me my happiness is worth an awful lot more, and very few people do find something that they love to do, and I've found it. So I'd rather be happy in what I do and love it. Yeah.
Good on you. I mean, I think that's what a lot of people sort of looking for, because I think the way this country works, especially with like education system and things like that, you're sort of programmed to just get your results, find a job.
Yeah.
And obviously you originally thought you wanted to go down that route of building surveying.
Yeah.
Quite quickly found that maybe it wasn't necessarily the right thing for you, and you were willing to sort of take a pay cut to go and do something that you actually genuinely loved.
Absolutely.
If it wasn't for your friend maybe suggesting that weekend work, you could potentially still be sat in that job right now.
Absolutely. And I think as well it is hard, because I was starting to work towards my chartership as a building surveyor. I was starting to build that portfolio of clients, properties, whatever, I was starting to become a building surveyor. And actually I've had to take a step back and realise I've done 5 years of uni, and actually I'm having a massive change of career again, and potentially going back, taking steps back. But ultimately I'd rather take those steps back and do something that fulfills me and I enjoy than stick at a job just because I've done uni and I've put all that money and time into a job. But if I'm not 100% happy, I'd rather take a couple of steps back and work towards what I love.
Yeah, sometimes it's worth taking maybe a step back to then take a big step forward, because obviously, like you say, you took the pay cut, which is probably the step back, but the step forward is in your mental health and sort of happiness long term.
And I think people are so scared to do it then.
Yeah, I imagine the pay will catch up anyway in the long run at some point. Maybe not quite to the top levels of maybe what a building surveyor could earn, but you never know where it could take you.
No, and I think, you know, it is a step back for me, but long term I'm going to be so much happier, and already I'm so much happier, even just in, relatively speaking, a short amount of time. And I think my family and friends have noticed a difference in that side of me, which is huge.
Well, that's good. But what is, like, you say, like, your happiness has increased, but what exactly is it? Like, what out of it do you get that makes it so much better?
Probably obviously the normal, you know, you're helping people, the job satisfaction, everything like that. But the environment that I'm in, it is constantly changing. No job is the same. No job that we're attending, the majority of the time, it isn't what it comes through as to us. And that's what I think I've always wanted and always looked for, is that ever-changing environment. And I did think it was like that before, and it was to a certain extent, but that ability to actually go into situations and have no idea what I'm turning up to, it's priceless. And it's exciting. It is exciting, and I love my job, and obviously I help people every day and can make even a tiny bit of difference, not even the big jobs of, you know, saving lives, etc. Just being able to sit down with a little old lady and make her a cup of tea, that if she doesn't have people to do that with, you've made a huge difference to her, and that's worth its weight in gold.
Yeah, I can imagine there's no days the same, like, at all. Like, you've told me, like, over Instagram and stuff, some of the things that you've been to. I don't think I could do a day in your shoes, to be quite honest.
I think it'd be great. Come out for a day.
But I'm not too sure about that. Like, put it this way, I'm not very good with blood at all. So any gory stuff,
I used to have
you're going to be putting me on a stretcher into the back of my.
I'll be real. Just hang on a minute. Bit of dramatics over here.
Yeah, exactly.
You do get used to it, though. I used to have a horrendous phobia of needles. Like,
I'm not very good with them either.
Yeah, I've quickly had to get over that.
Yeah, I'm not surprised, especially being front line. I can only imagine some of the things that you've had to sort of attend.
Yeah, but do you know what? It's good, and we all do it because we love the job. We're all in it.
Well, I think
all
you have
emergency
to.
services is because we love it, because we want to make a difference to people. And that's ultimately what we go out every shift to do, is to try and make somebody's day a little bit easier on the worst day of their life.
Do you think you almost become like numb to it?
Yeah.
It's like, have you got to? Like, I imagine you just have to not let, like, too much emotions into it, and you've got to just sort of crack on and sort of keep a level head.
Obviously there are jobs that bother you, and it's probably the jobs that you don't even expect to bother you. But you do have to, you find ways to protect yourself, whether it's something as small as, I don't know, you just learn to disconnect sometimes from the situation, from the emotional side, because otherwise you're not going to last a month, because, you know, you're dealing with trauma every single day and situations that most people don't even see in a lifetime, where particularly major frontline staff are seeing every shift. So you do learn to protect yourself from it. Don't
Yeah,
get
I've
me
got a
wrong, as I
cousin.
just said, you have jobs which do bother you, and there are always going to be jobs that bother you because we care. And the minute we stop caring is the minute we shouldn't be doing our job.
Yeah.
But it's learning how to cope with those jobs that do bother you and having that support system and your coping mechanisms for when you're at home to overcome those trickier jobs.
Yeah. I've got a cousin and a family friend that are both nurses, and sort of quite early on in their careers, they were sort of introduced to sort of, you know, your first dead body almost.
Yeah.
Just to sort of, instead of that being like a lingering thing, to sort of just, this is the worst thing you're going to see potentially.
Yeah.
So you can sort of, like I say, like almost become numb to those sort of situations.
Yeah.
And not have too much emotion around it. So you mentioned you've got to have like your coping mechanisms on how to deal with those situations that may bother you and sort of may come back home with you. What are your sort of ways of coping?
So probably it's really simple. My main ones are I've got the most amazing friends now through work. We obviously all go to the same sorts of jobs. We all see the same sorts of things. We get it. Whereas coming home, people who've never experienced it, no matter how hard you try and explain it, they don't understand it, and you don't really want them to sometimes. So using that support system in work of your friends, even something as simple as giving them a call on your way back, hands-free obviously, from shift, but phoning them.
Driver safety in here as well.
But just phoning them and chatting it through them and being like, do you know what, this has bothered me today? And they say after 72 hours, if you're still thinking about it and can't shift it, you know, I'd escalate it and speak to somebody probably more senior and more qualified in work. And we have part of private healthcare counselling, like online, that we can go through as well. And I think I'm looking into doing almost counselling once a month, not because I need it, but it's there for before I need it.
Isn't it? Yeah.
And even small things like when I come home, if I don't want to talk about a job, as soon as I'm out of my uniform, I don't talk about work. I try not to talk about the day. And I think from my family's point of view, they understand as soon as I'm out of my uniform, that's it. We don't talk about it. And
I'm pretty similar. I mean, obviously, I don't see the things that you see. I sit in front of a screen with a load of numbers on. Being a project accountant, it's not even comparable. But I have a similar thing that as soon as I've left the building or as soon as my laptop's off, that's it. Like I used to go. So obviously, in like the corporate world, there's like you've got to do the social side of things sometimes. And I've been to events where we're literally having drinks, we're sitting down for meals, and people are still talking about work. And I'm like, we've just done a whole day. Mm-hmm. Like, let's sort of leave this till tomorrow, especially with alcohol as well. I think you've got to have that separation where you don't bring the work home or to the social side of things. And
I think that is hard, isn't it? Particularly as well if like your friends are from your work, from your career. And I had this conversation with two of my really good friends from work this week, actually. We had a few drinks for my birthday, and I was saying it's so nice we haven't spoken about work.
Yeah.
And that's when you know you've got those true friends. But you know, they know they can look at me and be like, "What's up?" And I'm like, "Nothing." And then they pushed it, and I'm genuinely saying, "What's up?" Talk about it, and it's fine if they're there if I need them. Yeah. But we have that friendship where after work you don't talk about work unless.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's good that they understand when to sort of push you and nudge you to have that conversation and when to just have a drink.
Yeah.
And if we were going off your Instagram, you go for a drink quite a lot.
We had this conversation, didn't we?
We did.
I've got an alcohol drink.
To be fair, they're all spread out photos. It's not like close together. There's quite a bit of time between each one. But we were trying to find a photo to use for the thumbnail for the YouTube video. And every single photo that Steph had was with a glass of wine.
I'm either with somebody or I've got a drink in my hand, haven't I?
Yeah.
So do you know what? The next night out, I'm going out in a couple of weeks. I'll get a picture of me with no alcohol in my hand, just so we've got one.
Maybe we can change the thumbnail photo.
Yeah, just the one.
We'll see.
Thank you very much for watching part 1 of the podcast. If you'd like to watch part 2, click here. If you're new, make sure you subscribe. And if you enjoyed it, drop it a like below. Thanks.